Have you ever walked into a room where everyone knew something you didn't? Where the air shifted the moment you sat down and suddenly you realized this wasn't about including you. This was about making you disappear. The room went still after the line. There are no remaining distributions assigned to you. Then the nephew laughed, not cruel, but knowing, like he'd rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. I counted the clicks of pens against leather folders, 14 clicks. I measured the distance to the door, 22 steps. The mahogany table between us gleamed under the conference room lights on Nicollet Mall, downtown Minneapolis. The nephew's cologne mixed with coffee from a carafe I wasn't offered. The executor from Medina, polished, efficient, pre-boarding a flight out of my life, skimmed pages like I wasn't there. His assistant stacked folders by priority. Mine wasn't in the stack. Mrs. Henderson maintained the household, someone said. Not my name, not my title. Just maintained. Like furniture. Like I dusted their memories and swept their mistakes under rugs I'd purchased myself. The nephew reached for the keys to the Brainerd Lake House. His hand hovered over the key ring, the one with the brass loon charm I'd given my husband on our 10th anniversary. The executor slid the ring across the table without hesitation. Rain-soaked coats dripped in the hallway outside. Lemon cleaner smell drifted from the reception area. Cold glass pressed against my palm. Water I'd poured but couldn't drink. My breath went in for 8 counts, out for 8. Ohio winters taught me how to wait inside a storm without breaking apart. They assumed silence meant surrender. If you've ever been erased in a room full of witnesses, drop silence defeat below. And if this already feels familiar, subscribe. Because what happens next rewrites everything. Not subscribing? Tell me why in the comments. I read them all. Then the executor cleared his throat. A small sound, a shift in the room's air. Before we conclude, he said, voice careful now, there's a matter of legal clarification. He read my full legal name, the one from the 2001 Hennepin County Deed Addendum, the one they'd conveniently forgotten existed. The word spouse landed like a gavel nobody saw coming. The nephew's hand froze mid-reach. The assistant's pen stopped clicking. Someone coughed, nervous, sudden. According to county records, the executor continued, eyes scanning the document like he was seeing it for the first time, Mrs. Henderson holds legal standing as surviving spouse under Minnesota statutes with documented interest in marital property acquired between 2001 and present. The nephew's face went blank. Not angry. Blank. Like someone had just rewritten his script and he hadn't memorized the new lines. I stood. 22 steps to the door. I took 21. At the threshold, I turned back once. The deed addendum, I said. 2001. You'll want to review that. Pause. Write down deed addendum 2001. You'll need it. The tea went cold before I remembered I'd made it. The house still smelled like his aftershave, but the silence felt louder than grief. The Brainerd Lake House sat empty around me. Half-cleared tables. His reading glasses folded on the side table where he'd left them 3 weeks ago. Folded laundry I'd started the morning he went into hospice. Still sitting in the basket, waiting for hands that would never finish the job. The nephew's gift sat on the kitchen counter. A brass keychain. No keys, just the chain. My laptop pinged, email notification, subject line, estate administration process, action required. No greeting, no signature, just instructions. I opened it. Time-stamped, 11:47 p.m. 3 hours after the reading ended. Location metadata, Chicago. My husband had been in hospice care in St. Paul. The email outlined next steps. Asset inventories, property assessments, beneficiary confirmations, legal language wrapped around instructions that felt less like guidance and more like orders. Please remit all household financial records to the family office within 5 business days. Please. Like politeness made erasure acceptable. I closed the laptop. The squeaky drawer beside the desk, the one that always announced when someone honest was home, called to me. I'd been avoiding it for 3 weeks. Not anymore. Ever received an email so cold it felt like a verdict being handed down? I didn't mean to open that drawer. It squeaked the way it always did when someone honest was home. Beneath tax receipts and old utility bills, an unmarked manila folder. Heavy, worn at the edges. The kind that gets opened and closed many times. Inside, 3 things that changed everything. First, a handwritten note in my husband's shaky late-stage handwriting, just 3 words, "Are we protected?" dated 6 months before his death. The question mark pressed so hard it nearly tore through the paper. Second, a draft will, printed, not final. My full legal name appeared 7 times, each mention circled in red ink. Not my husband's red pen, someone else's. Margin notes in unfamiliar handwriting, simplify beneficiary structure, consolidate distributions. Nephew handles coordination, 7 circles, 7 erasures planned in red ink before they ever read that final version in the conference room. Third, an appointment schedule, Chicago addresses, meeting times, 3 p.m., 4:30 p.m., 7 p.m., all marked urgent, all on Sundays, all during weeks my husband was either in treatment or too weak to leave St. Paul. One entry stopped me cold. Sunday, March 12th, witness coordination. Confirm availability post-service hours. Post-service hours. Sundays. When offices are closed. I spread the documents across the kitchen table. The draft will. The red circles. The Sunday schedule. The handwritten doubt. My name was there, then crossed out with surgical precision. Margin note in that same unfamiliar handwriting. Nephew handles distribution. Confirm witness availability Sunday. What would you do with proof you were never meant to see? And would you go alone or call someone? I picked up my phone. There was someone. A family attorney. Semi-retired now, but he'd known us for 20 years. If anyone would understand what I was looking at, it was him. The call rang twice. "I need to show you something," I said when he answered, "and I need you to tell me if I'm reading this correctly." Silence. Then, "Where are you? Home?" "Stay there. I'm coming to you." He arrived 30 minutes later. Didn't take off his coat. Sat at the kitchen table. Read without speaking. His brow didn't move until he found the margin note. He read without speaking. His brow didn't move until he found the margin note. Then he looked up once and said, "Sunday signatures are rare." We moved to a neutral cafe in uptown Minneapolis the next morning. Rain streaked the windows. He ordered black coffee. I ordered nothing. My stomach hadn't settled since finding that folder. He validated every suspicion I'd been afraid to voice. "Sunday signings happen," he said, pulling out a legal pad, "but they require explicit documentation, notary logs, witness affidavits, building access records if it's done at an office." He tapped the margin note. "This says post-service hours. That means after business close." Can they do that? They can. But the paper trail has to be immaculate. Any gap, any single missing timestamp or contradictory log entry, and the entire execution becomes questionable. He wrote 3 items on his legal pad. Calm, methodical, like we were planning a grocery list instead of dismantling an estate fraud. 1. Request building access logs for the Chicago office on the dates listed. 2. Subpoena witness statements. Confirm they were physically present. 3. Obtain metadata from the executed documents, creation dates, edit history, device signatures. "This stays quiet," he said. "We don't make accusations. We ask questions. We request records. We let the inconsistencies speak for themselves." One overlooked date can cost you years of your life. Subscribe now so you never miss the details that matter most. He slid a business card across the table. Plain white. Simple text. Digital forensics specialist. Madison, Wisconsin. She's the best at document metadata analysis. If those signatures were forged, if those edits were made after the fact, if anyone backdated anything, she'll find it. I took the card. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. 2 witnesses signed on a Sunday, he continued. Do you recognize their names? I shook my head. Neither one had ever stepped inside your home? Never. He made a note, underlined it twice. The hospice care coordinator remembered the visit clearly. He was tired but lucid, she said over the phone. Asked careful questions about his rights, about what protections existed for spouses, about whether decisions made under duress could be challenged. I sat at the kitchen table, phone pressed to my ear, taking notes. When was this? Let me check. Pages rustled. Computer keys clicked. February 18th, 2 weeks before he passed. 2 weeks. He knew something was wrong. He tried to protect me. He scheduled a follow-up appointment, she continued. Wanted to review his advance directives, make sure everything aligned with his wishes. Did he make that appointment? Pause. Longer than comfortable. No, it was canceled. Not by him. My pen stopped moving. Who canceled it? The call came from a family office representative, said the patient was too fatigued for additional consultations, requested we suspend all non-medical appointments until further notice. I wrote, family office, suspended appointments, patient never consulted. Did my husband know about the cancellation? I don't believe so. He asked me about the follow-up during his last week. Seemed surprised it hadn't happened. The coordinator's voice softened. He kept asking if I'd put things in writing. Our conversations about his concerns, his questions about spousal protections. He said he needed documentation, just in case. Did you? I did. Dated, detailed intake notes. Standard procedure for patient advocacy concerns. My breath caught. Do you still have those notes? Yes, and I'm willing to provide them if they're relevant to any legal proceedings. Go public now with what you know, or keep digging quietly. What's your move? I thanked her. Ended the call. Sat in the silence of the lake house. He tried to protect me. Right up until the end, he tried. The nephew's family office silenced him. Not anymore. This isn't sloppy work, the digital forensic specialist from Madison said. Screen light reflecting off her glasses. This was constructed to look legitimate. Her office was small, 3 monitors, a wall of hard drives, the kind of space where truth lives in numbers and timestamps. I handed her the documents, the draft will with red circles, the Sunday appointment schedule, the hospice notes, the email timestamped from Chicago. She worked in silence for 40 minutes. Her fingers moved across keyboards. Files opened. Metadata appeared in columns I didn't understand. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, precise, methodical. Here, she said finally, turning one monitor toward me. Document creation date, February 10th. Last modified, March 14th, the day after my husband died. 47 edits over 72 hours. Someone was revising this will after he passed? She nodded. And the witnesses. She pulled up another file. Both signatures show identical pressure patterns, same pen angle, same ink flow rate. What does that mean? It means one person signed both witness lines, not 2 separate people. My hands went cold. She clicked through more files, email headers, EXIF data, building access logs from the Chicago office. Sunday, March 12th, document timestamp 7:43 p.m. Building access log? She turned the screen. Facility secured at 6 p.m. No entry recorded after that time. They signed documents in a locked building? No. They signed documents and backdated the timestamp to make it look like they were signed in that building on that Sunday. But the metadata doesn't lie. She printed 3 pages, handed them to me. Version control summary, signature analysis report, access log discrepancies. These witnesses, do you have their license numbers? I showed her the documents from the will reading. She typed, waited. Her face changed. This witness license was suspended 8 months ago, unlicensed to notarize in Minnesota or Illinois. Miss one timestamp and someone else controls your legacy. Subscribe, because the next digital clue I uncover could save you years of legal battles. She leaned back, took off her glasses, cleaned them with her sleeve. You need a preservation order, today, before any assets move or get transferred. What does that do? Freezes everything: bank accounts, property titles, investment portfolios. Nothing moves until a court reviews these irregularities. Can we file that? I can draft it right now. Your attorney files it with Hennepin County Court. If the judge sees what I'm seeing, you'll have a hold by close of business. She pulled up a template, started typing. Property addresses, account numbers, document discrepancies, metadata evidence, witness license status. 2 pages, clean, devastating. This is enough. She looked at me over her glasses. This is more than enough. This is proof of systematic document manipulation. The court doesn't take that lightly. She drafted the preservation order, the kind that freezes brokerage accounts, property titles, and asset transfers before they walk. By force on PM, it was filed with Hennepin County Court. Will the judge grant the hold? Drop your answer below. I found the original draft where we kept old tax receipts, as if values were just another line item waiting to be reconciled at year's end. Back home, I couldn't sleep. The house felt different now. Not empty, full of questions. The basement storage room, metal filing cabinet, the kind with sticky drawers that need 2 hands to open. Behind folders labeled 2019 taxes and 2020 property records, I found it. A manila envelope, thick, sealed. My name written on the front in his handwriting. Inside, an earlier version of the will, dated 2018, printed on different paper, different law firm letterhead, not the family office. I read it slowly. My full legal name appeared in paragraph 2. To my spouse, who has been partner, companion, and steward of our shared life. Specific protections. Life estate in the Brainerd property. Spousal share of all marital assets acquired after 2001. Trust beneficiary status. Healthcare proxy authority. His handwriting filled the margins. Confirm spousal continuity. Underlined twice. Prenuptial schedule attached. Protects both parties. Arrow pointing to page 7. Verify execution independently. Nephew said he'd coordinate. Get second opinion. Triple underlined. He knew. Even back then, he knew to be careful. The final margin note broke me. She kept this house a home. Protect that. I sat on the basement floor, cold concrete through my jeans, the will draft in my hands. He tried to protect me. Wrote it down, made it legal, put it in his own handwriting so nobody could claim they didn't understand his intent. The nephew's version erased all of it. I took photos. Every page, every margin note, every underlined phrase, uploaded them to secure cloud storage with timestamps, called my attorney. I found an earlier version, 2018, full spousal protections. His handwriting in the margins confirms intent. Bring it tomorrow morning, first thing. There's more. A prenuptial schedule, the 2001 deed addendum, everything the family office claimed didn't exist. Silence on the line. Then, this changes everything. Pack all original documents. We're building a timeline they can't dispute. I worked until 3:00 a.m., copied every page, organized by date, created a comparison chart, 2018 version versus the nephew's version. Every deletion highlighted, every changed beneficiary marked. Legal packet ready by morning, including the 2001 deed addendum the family office never disclosed. The message was one sentence: motion granted, temporary asset preservation order in effect. I didn't cheer. I exhaled for the first time in 11 days. Coffee shop near the courthouse. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Henderson? Judge Martinson granted your preservation motion. All estate assets are frozen pending forensic review. My attorney, his voice calm, professional. But I heard the satisfaction underneath. Everything? Bank accounts, investment portfolios, property titles, the Brainerd Lake House. Nothing transfers without court approval. I set my coffee down. My hand was shaking. What happens now? They'll file an objection. We respond with the evidence. The court schedules a review hearing, but for now, you've stopped them from moving assets while we build the case. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. One motion can flip the entire game board. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing the exact strategies that turn defense into offense. Hit subscribe now. That evening, a courier arrived at the lake house. Glossy cardstock envelope. Heavy. Expensive. Memorial tribute celebration. Honoring a legacy of service. The nephew's family office logo in the corner. Date, Saturday, 6 p.m. Location, upscale venue in Edina. I read the invitation twice. A celebration of my husband's life, organized by the people trying to erase me from his will, hosted by the nephew who'd laughed during the reading, sponsored by the family office that had manipulated documents after his death. My name wasn't on the invitation, but at the bottom, in small print, open to community members and partners of the estate. Partners of the estate. That was me, whether they wanted to admit it or not. I called my attorney. There's a memorial tribute Saturday. The nephew's hosting it. Are you planning to attend? Should I? He paused. If you go, observe. Listen. Don't engage. Public events like this, people talk. They say things they wouldn't say in a deposition. So I should go? I didn't say that. I said if you go, be strategic. The tribute event was organized by the nephew's family office, the same office that had tried to erase me from the paperwork. My name wasn't on the invitation, but I was going anyway. Attend the event and gather intelligence, or avoid it entirely. What would you do? They labeled the display items his favorites. I'd purchased one of them on our anniversary. My name wasn't on the memorial card beneath it. The venue in Edina was everything I expected. Polished floors, soft lighting, catered appetizers on silver trays, people in dark suits holding wine glasses, speaking in hushed, respectful tones. I arrived alone, wore simple black. No jewelry except my wedding ring. The display table near the entrance. Photographs, awards, personal items meant to represent his life. A fishing rod, a community service plaque, a leather-bound book I'd given him for his 60th birthday. The card beneath it read, "Donated by the family office collection," not donated by his wife. Not my name, just family office collection, like I'd never existed. I stayed on the edges, near the windows. Close enough to hear conversations, but far enough not to be noticed. The nephew worked the room, handshakes, shoulder pats, that same knowing smile from the will reading. He'd positioned himself as the grieving family representative, the one carrying forward the legacy. People approached me, colleagues, community members who remembered me from events we'd attended together. How are you holding up? Are you still at the lake house? Will you continue his work with the community center? Their questions revealed something the nephew hadn't anticipated. People assumed I still had authority. They thought I was involved in estate decisions. Nobody had told them I'd been erased from the paperwork. I listened more than I spoke. The nephew stepped outside, phone pressed to his ear. I moved closer to the window. His voice carried through the glass. Liquidate the Brainerd property quietly before the review hearing. We can't risk her establishing residency rights. I froze. No, don't file anything yet. Just get an appraisal. Have the paperwork ready. The moment the judge lifts the hold, we move fast. He listened to whoever was on the other end. I don't care what it takes. That property is worth $600,000. We're not losing it to a last-minute spousal claim. The date he mentioned, before the review hearing, synced exactly with the week my husband was admitted to hospice. The same week, 3 urgent documents were supposedly signed. Screenshot that phrase in your mind, liquidate quietly. It becomes evidence in Chapter 11. I stepped back from the window, pulled out my phone, voice memo app, recorded the date, time, exact words I'd heard. Liquidate the Brainerd property quietly, before the review hearing. Timestamp, 7:23 p.m. A woman approached, estate planner from the family office, young, nervous. She'd been at the will reading but hadn't spoken. "Mrs. Henderson?" Her voice was quiet. "Can I speak with you? Not here, somewhere private." "When?" "Tomorrow, downtown library, second floor, back corner. 10 a.m. She walked away before I could respond. I left the event early, didn't say goodbye, didn't thank anyone. Just walked through the polished doors into the parking lot where my car sat under a streetlight. Inside the car, I sat for 10 minutes, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. Tomorrow, the estate planner wanted to talk. Tonight, I'd heard the nephew planning to liquidate property the court had frozen. The truth was building. One overheard phrase at a time. 7:43 p.m., Sunday evening. The estate planner read from her phone. Signature witnessed at the office. But building access logs show nobody entered. Downtown Minneapolis Library, second floor, back corner where nobody studies on Sunday mornings. She arrived exactly at 10, looked over her shoulder twice before sitting down. "I brought documentation," she said quietly, sliding a folder across the table. "Everything I could copy without them noticing. Inside, appointment planner with handwritten timestamp notes, metadata from document execution, building access logs from the Chicago office, email thread showing the nephew requesting discreet Sunday signing." "Why are you doing this?" She looked at me. Young, maybe 28, freckles, tired eyes. Because what they did wasn't right. I watched them manipulate those documents. I heard the nephew tell my supervisor to backdate the execution timestamp. I kept my mouth shut because I needed this job. And now? Now I can't sleep. Your husband was dying and they were rewriting his will. They made me witness documents he never signed. She opened her phone, pulled up email screenshots. March 11th, the nephew writes, "Prepare final execution documents. Sunday signing at 7:30 p.m. Discreet, minimal witnesses." My supervisor responds, "Building closes at 6 on Sundays. Private entry arranged." Private entry? They used the nephew's key card to bypass building security. No official access log. But the security system still recorded the entry attempt. It just wasn't logged in the public system. "Do you have that security record?" She pulled out another document. Security system export. Raw data. Entry attempts logged by keycard number. Sunday, March 12th. Entry attempt 6:47 p.m. Keycard. Unauthorized access denied. Building policy requires two-person authorization after hours. They couldn't get in? No. So they signed the document somewhere else and backdated the timestamp to make it look like they were executed in the office. They counted on her silence. One brave voice changes everything. Subscribe so you never miss how the truth fights back. Quietly, methodically, and on the record. She showed me the witness signatures. "This is my signature, but I never saw your husband sign anything." The nephew brought pre-signed documents to the office, asked me to witness signatures that were already on paper. "That's legal?" "No. Witnesses have to be present when the person signs. If we witness after the fact, it's not valid." She stacked the documents neatly, handed them to me. "I'll testify if you need me to. I'll put all of this in a sworn statement, but I need protection. I'll lose my job the moment they find out I talked to you. My attorney will handle that. Whistleblower protections. You won't face retaliation." She nodded, stood to leave, stopped. Access log stamped. Building secured. 6 p.m. Sunday. Entry recorded, none. Signature time-stamped on documents, 7:43 p.m. Same building, impossible. Is this enough evidence to challenge the entire will? Drop your legal prediction below. The letter from the nephew's attorney was polished, cold, and 6 pages long. My rebuttal was sharper, and only 2 pages. My attorney's office. He read the nephew's letter aloud. Legal threats wrapped in professional language. claims of defamation, accusations of interference with estate administration, demands that I cease contact with estate staff and withdraw all filings. They're scared, my attorney said, setting the letter down. How can you tell? Because they're threatening instead of explaining. If they had clean documents, they'd present them. Instead, they're trying to intimidate you into backing down. We spent 3 hours building the response packet. Page 1. Timeline of document manipulation. Every date, every inconsistency, every canceled appointment and backdated signature. Page 2. Evidence summary. Witness testimony from hospice coordinator. Metadata analysis from the forensics specialist. Building access logs showing impossible entry times. Insider testimony from the estate planner. The 2001 deed addendum. The original 2018 will draft with margin notes in my husband's handwriting. Everything organized in chronological order. No emotion, no accusations, just facts with timestamps. My attorney wrote one sentence at the bottom of page 2. Silence is not surrender. Documentation is. We filed the response at 4:45 p.m. same day. The nephew's attorney called within an hour. Requested a private meeting to discuss settlement options. What does that mean? It means they see the evidence and they're looking for a way out. Do we meet with them? Not yet. We file for forensic document comparison first, make them defend their documents under expert scrutiny. The motion went in the next morning. Request for independent forensic document analysis. Request to retain expert witness. Request for review hearing within 14 days. Ever been told to back down when you knew you were right and refused? Tell me about it. The nephew's attorney responded within 24 hours, requested extension for review hearing, claimed need for additional time to gather supporting documentation. My attorney's response was 3 words: extension request opposed. The court ruled the following afternoon. Forensic document comparison, approved by the court. Expert witness, retained. Review hearing, scheduled in 14 days. The nephew's attorney requested an extension, denied. The governance board chairwoman said, "We appreciate your continued grace during this transition." I slid the envelope to the first board member without a word. Same conference room, same mahogany table, same view of Nicollet Mall where it all started. But everything was different now. The nephew stood at the head of the table, prepared remarks printed on cardstock, PowerPoint presentation cued on the screen behind him, his speech about ensuring institutional continuity and honoring legacy through careful stewardship. I sat in the back corner, quiet. 10 evidence packets in a canvas bag. He didn't see me arrive. The board members did. 7 people. 3 I knew from community events. 4 I'd never met. They nodded acknowledgement, professional, careful. The nephew began his presentation. Slide 1, estate overview. Slide 2, asset distribution timeline. Slide 3, simplified beneficiary structure ensures efficient administration. I opened my bag, pulled out the first envelope. Slide 4, community legacy preservation. I stood, walked to the first board member, placed the envelope on the table in front of her. Said nothing. She looked at me. Then at the envelope, opened it. The nephew kept talking. Didn't notice yet. Second board member, second envelope. Timeline of document manipulation. Third board member, metadata analysis showing 47 edits after death. The nephew's voice faltered. He saw me now, fourth board member. Building access logs showing impossible Sunday signatures. Fifth board member, hospice coordinator testimony about canceled appointments. The chairwoman raised her hand. Could we pause the presentation for a moment? The nephew's face went pale. I distributed the remaining packets. Witness testimony. Original 2018 will draft. The 2001 deed addendum. Forensic specialist report. Email thread showing discrete Sunday signing requests. Then I walked back to my chair, sat down, folded my hands, didn't interrupt, didn't speak. Let the document speak. The strongest move in any room, letting the truth speak while you stay silent. Subscribe. Because learning when not to speak is the lesson nobody teaches you. Still haven't subscribed? Drop Y below. Genuinely curious. The chairwoman opened her packet, read the first page. Her expression changed. These are serious allegations. They're documented facts, I said quietly, with timestamps. The board members read in silence, pages turning, eyes scanning, someone's pen tapping against the table. The nephew tried to continue. As I was saying about institutional, could we have a 10-minute recess? The chairwoman wasn't asking. I stood, walked to the door, didn't look back. In the hallway, I counted my breaths. 8 in, 8 out. 15 minutes later, they called me back. The chairwoman stood. Given the documentation presented this evening, the board is postponing the vote on estate administration pending independent review. We'll be requesting a third-party forensic analysis of all execution documents, another board member added. The nephew's prepared remarks sat abandoned on the table. Vote postponed. Third-party forensic review, requested by 3 board members in whispers as I walked to the elevator. The nephew's face went pale. Strongest power move in that room was silence. Do you agree, or would you have spoken? Comment your strategy. No confession, no apology. Just a formal statement about stepping aside to protect institutional integrity. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m. Subject line, Estate Administration Update. I read it twice before the words registered. The nephew was resigning from his executor role, citing potential appearance of conflict, recommending court-appointed interim oversight, effective immediately, no admission of wrongdoing, no acknowledgement of the manipulated documents, just careful institutional language that protected him legally while stepping away from the fire he'd started. My attorney called minutes later. Did you see? Just now. The court accepted his resignation. They're appointing an interim administrator today, someone with no family connections, someone who'll review everything with fresh eyes. What does that mean for the will contest? It means we've won the first battle. The documents are under scrutiny. The assets are protected. Your legal standing is recognized. The rest depends on what the forensic review finds. But we already know what they'll find. A second email arrived while we were talking, forwarded by my attorney's office. Private note, delivered through the interim administrator. Single line acknowledging your diligent protection of documented values and legal rights. Not from the nephew, from his attorney. As close to an apology as I would get. I sat at the kitchen table. The house quiet around me. Morning light coming through the windows over the lake. My husband's reading glasses still sat on the side table, his coffee mug still in the cabinet, his handwriting still in the margins of documents that proved his intent. He'd tried to protect me, wrote it down, made it legal, left a paper trail they couldn't erase completely, and now, finally, the truth was being heard. That afternoon, another message from the interim administrator. Given the resolution of executor conflict and the pending forensic review, you have the option to pursue full financial damages for document manipulation and estate interference, or accept documented acknowledgement of your legal standing as closure. 72 hours to decide. Financial damages meant prolonged litigation, depositions, court hearings, public testimony, years of my life spent fighting. Documented acknowledgement meant my name restored, my legal standing recognized, my husband's intent honored, and the freedom to move forward. I thought about what he would want. Not vengeance, not public destruction, just protection for what we'd built together. The private note included one question. Will you pursue financial damages or accept documented acknowledgement as closure? I had 72 hours to decide. The memorial plaque on the community center had weathered 23 Minnesota winters. The promise behind it hadn't faded at all. I drove to the community center on a Tuesday morning, the building where my husband had volunteered every Thursday for 2 decades, where he'd taught financial literacy classes to seniors, where he'd believed community mattered more than wealth. The director remembered me. "We heard about the estate complications. Are you all right?" "Getting there." She showed me to the archive room. Small, organized, file boxes labeled by year. He kept copies of everything here. Said it was important to document the work, not for credit, but for continuity. I opened the boxes, letters of intent showing his plan to endow a permanent fund for the center, correspondence with attorneys about protecting both the community mission and spousal interests, early will drafts, before the nephew got involved, that named me as co-trustee of the Community Legacy Fund, everything he'd tried to build, everything the nephew had tried to redirect. "Can I make copies?" "Take the originals, we have digital backups. These belong with you now." I spent 3 hours copying, organizing, uploading to secure storage, building an archive of intent that couldn't be disputed. Then I drove to the Brainerd Lake House. Early spring, ice melting on the lake, small green shoots pushing through dead grass, bulbs we'd planted 2 autumns ago before he got sick, breaking through frozen ground, winter turning to bloom. Inside, I made tea, sat at the kitchen table where we'd had breakfast every Saturday morning for 18 years, wrote my decision on a single sheet of paper. I accept documented acknowledgement as closure, no financial damages pursued, request that all original documents be archived with Hennepin County and the Community Center, preserving intent for future reference. Not vengeance, values. I signed it, scanned it, emailed it to my attorney and the interim administrator. Done. In the office, the room where I'd found the first hidden folder, I opened the old filing cabinet one last time. Behind the 2020 tax records, tucked behind a ledger I'd forgotten existed, I found a sealed envelope. My name in his careful handwriting, dated 3 months before his death. Underneath, "Open when you know you've won." My hands shook opening it. 1 page. His voice preserved in ink. "If you're reading this, it means you had to fight for what we built together. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from that fight. But I know you won, because you don't give up on truth, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Keep the house. Keep the community fund. Keep our promises alive. You've already won by being who you've always been, steady, true, and stronger than anyone gives you credit for, with love and gratitude." His signature at the bottom. What would you preserve for a future you might never see? Tell me what matters most to you. They didn't applaud when the governance board read my name at the spring meeting. They nodded. The way people do when they finally understand a truth they should have known all along. 6 weeks later. Same conference room overlooking Nicollet Mall. Full circle. The chairwoman read from prepared remarks. Following independent forensic review and resolution of executor conflict, the board formally acknowledges Mrs. Henderson's legal standing as surviving spouse with full rights under Minnesota marital property law and documented testamentary intent. Simple words, legal language, but they meant everything. The estate will proceed under court-appointed administration, with distributions honoring the 2018 will provisions and 2001 property agreements. My name restored. My husband's intent honored. Our promises kept. I wore the small brass key on a chain around my neck, the one from the lake house, the one that had come without keys in the nephew's empty gift. Now it held meaning again. The meeting ended quickly. Board members shook my hand, professional, respectful. A few apologized for not seeing the irregularities sooner. I thanked them. Left before anyone could make speeches. Outside, spring air. Cool, clean. The sky above Nicollet Mall opened wide after months of winter gray. I walked 2 blocks to a small park, sat on a bench, opened the envelope I'd been carrying in my bag since morning. The final letter from my husband, the one I'd found in the lake house. I read it again in the daylight. His words, his belief that I would win because I was steady and true. He'd known me, known I wouldn't fight with noise or spectacle, known I'd fight with documentation, patience, and truth that outlasted lies. The story finally written in a hand that won't be erased. Mine, his. The truth held on paper. I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, held it against my chest for a moment. Then I stood, walked back to my car, drove to the community center. The director met me at the door. The estate confirmed the endowment, full funding for the financial literacy program, your name and his, together on the new plaque. Just his name is fine. No, both names. That's what he specified in the original paperwork. Both names, equal partnership. I looked at the old plaque on the wall. 23 years of weathering. 23 years of promises kept. Soon there would be a new one, with both our names. Proof that some things can't be erased. Open sky above Nicollet Mall, cool spring air. The story finally written in a hand that won't be erased. Mine, his, and the truth held on paper that outlasted every attempt to silence it. Thanks for staying until the end. If this journey reminded you that silence doesn't mean surrender, hit that like button. Subscribe for more true stories where the quiet ones win, not through noise, but through receipts. Drop the one line you'll carry with you in the comments below. What does it take to reclaim your name when someone tried to erase it? Share your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it with them now.